Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to our CounterAction show. It's, I think, episode 8? Something like that. It's going to be just myself, Andrew, today. Jonathan's going to get his car fixed. And welcome back after like a 2-ish week break from summer. I had a whole bunch of stuff really painful stuff happened recently. That's why I wasn't able to do a whole lot, and Jonathan was pretty busy as well. I might one of these share more what's going on. So I just gotta kind of wait to see if that's an appropriate thing to do, since it's involving myself and people I care about. So today's episode, we figured, hey, we're going to talk about our recruiting experiences with joining the military. But since Jonathan's gone, it's going to be just me, Andrew, sharing with you guys what that was like. So if you weren't aware, we are a platform where we're trying to give veterans a place to kind of share their experiences. We want to talk about our experiences. We always talk about stuff with like mental health, the VA, things like that, because we're trying to challenge stereotypes and to kind of progress the veteran community forward as a group, and hopefully kind of generate some understanding between ourselves and everyone else. Because if you're not familiar, only around 1% of the U.S. population is currently in the military, and I believe it's about the same number for the total population. That's at least what makes sense to me in my head and from talking with the VA stuff. So most people don't even know a veteran or have a connection to someone who is currently in or was in at all, other than perhaps it's more common for folks to have like grandparents, great grandparents, because of World War II and that kind of thing that we're in. So otherwise, a lot of folks don't really have a lot of exposure, and so we're trying to do more exposure with that with this channel. So if you are interested in supporting what we do, make sure you click the like button. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to us if you're on YouTube. If you're on our podcast platforms, we're on things like Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon, I believe Apple now, Google, and a host of other things like Pandora. So make sure you guys download the episodes, follow that kind of thing, because that would really help us out, especially if you're kind of curious about all things military. And if you got questions, you can always email us at counteraction22@gmail.com. We have in the description box the actual email address there, so you can copy it or click on it on your phone. You might be able just to send an email, and you can just tell us like, hey, what do you guys think about this thing, or we want to talk with you guys about this thing, and then we'll do our best to work it out. We just need you guys to have a Skype, but we'll go over more details for that if the time arises, as well as we have a Twitter. It's at CounterAction 20 or 15. It's at CounterAction 15. Same logos and all that stuff. So if you want to have more interaction with us and support us, those are great places to go to do those things. And of course, commenting is probably the fastest if you're on YouTube. All right, so this episode I want to share with you guys my experience with joining the Marines. All right, so we're talking about like what was going on for me when I was considering joining. Experience with recruiters, and mine might have a little bit of a slightly different twist to it, just because the job I had required a little bit more than one recruiter. I had like a general Marine Corps recruiter, and then I had a specific MOS or military occupation specialty recruiter. So hopefully I can give you guys a fun little picture. So back in 2011, I was a senior in high school. I graduated in 2011. 2010 and 2011 was my senior year. I was planning to go to school to be a band director. That was kind of what I was planning on doing. I wanted to perform. I was really into saxophone. I was winning all kinds of regional contests, scholarships, things like that, kind of going all over. Spent the summer touring, and I was like, you know what? Being a performance guy might not work out the best. Those are kind of hard to pull off. And I figured, hey, I can always be like a band director and do stuff on the side. And who knows, if I get really good or if a career with the performing takes off, I don't need a degree to say that I can play a horn. So let's could be a band director. Then we get to the end of that first semester, so like end of year of 2010. Started dating this gal, and in the spring, a little bit before prom of 2011, she cheated on me / dumped me for a more masculine guy. That's what she said. She's like, hey, this guy plays football. That's way more tough than what you can do. And that was around the time the recruiter was talking to me. And I was like, oh yeah, can he do this? So that was kind of my, like, I guess, not well-known reason for why I got at least interested in hearing a recruiter, was because of that. And so like they hit me up and they were talking to me about like all this Marine Corps stuff, and the guy's name was Staff Sergeant Lord. Like, like what's a more stereotypical jarhead name than Lord? And then my MOS recruiter guy was Gunnery Sergeant Knuckles. So I had like two of the most typical like ground pounding, like really badass sounding names for recruiters I could possibly think of. Um, Coupled with this whole thing with this gal that I was dating. And now when we started this recruiting stuff, of course at first I was a little bit like, well, show me what you got. And I got pretty well sold on the whole, hey, you can do the band while doing like combat training and you can deploy and all this other stuff. Did it actually work out that way? No, but that's for a different episode. So anyways, so I was like 18 being talked to by this guy. He'll probably at least a little bit heartbroken, probably at least a little bit angry. And, I kind of went for it. It turned out a friend of mine, I went to like social group, like youth group kinds of things. He had already signed up and he had given the first recruiter, Staff Sergeant Lord, my name. And so we had some laughs for a while about how he tried to ruin my life also he could become a PFC off the bat. It's a little joke thing we had for a little bit. He was an infantry guy, this friend of mine. So anyways, so this recruiting stuff, you start out talking with the recruiter, and at least for Marines, they're going to be like, hey, we do, they call it like delayed entry program. I believe they still call it that. At the time, that's what it was called. And the gist is you have these responsibilities. Like once a month, you'd have to go to like a pool function kind of a thing. The idea would be you might get to experience some of boot camp. You might get to learn some skills. There's going to probably be some amount of running and fitness involved with this whole thing. And then every week you do a workout with your recruiter because part of the things you have to do when you first show up to Marine Corps boot camp is pass a fitness test. Granted, on the enlisted side, it's about half of the full test. So you run 1.5 miles instead of 3. I believe at the time you only had to do as males maybe 5 pull-ups. Excuse me. 5 pull-ups might have been the minimum. It might have been 3. And then it was something like 40-something crunches in like 2 minutes. It's something like that. Whereas if you do the officer route, like I later went on and did, which could be a different episode because there's differences between enlisted recruiting and officer stuff, especially if you're a prior service. You do the full PF, so it's 3 miles, use at least 115 crunches, and you want to try to shoot for at least 23 pull-ups because that would then be a 300 score. So anyways, the enlisted side of stuff, you do the half. So recruiters want to make sure that you're still working on stuff on your own. The test is kind of easy enough where really if you do one good workout a week, you'll probably be fine. And then you're not allowed to like sign papers or you're not supposed to get shipped off or whatever until like you've proven yourself with this. They call it the IST, initial strength test, and so that's a bunch of reasons for why they do this weekly thing. And I'm sure part of it is to keep you motivated because if you keep showing up to something every week, you're gonna kind of get your freshly indoctrination of whatever it is they're selling you. You're gonna have some like-minded people around you. You're all kind of working towards the same goal, and it's just gonna probably most likely help their numbers to be higher. So that's something I usually try to encourage folks if they are interested in joining and they're talking with the recruiter is to remember, while not all recruiters are maybe going to lie to you to get you to join, they do have numbers they have to hit. So like once you're in the fleet and all that, you kind of learn a little bit more about it. But I have friends that are recruiters and they tell me stuff like, yeah, we would have like weekly or daily quotas where I couldn't go home until I had set up so many appointments, or like if I didn't have so many contracts signed, then there would be some kind of a consequence. So like they have a huge incentive to tell you whatever it is you want to hear to make you join. Now for me, I got told, hey, you're going to do tons of jazz, lots of like fun, that music you like doing. You're not going to have to do much marching. And it was like the opposite. Like I did some jazz, some of the stuff I like doing, and almost all of it, like 80% of it, was marching, and that sucked. Like that was definitely a lie I got told by my MOS recruiter. But hey, like it is what it is, and so now I'm sharing with you guys. So some stuff to be aware of if you're trying to join is it's really common, especially for other branches like the Navy, for folks to try and contract with a SEAL contract so they can go and be a Navy SEAL. But what the recruiters probably aren't telling that young person is that those folks that sign a Navy SEAL contract for their very first deal, like they're brand new joining up at 18, is like 99% of them fail and get thrown into whatever job it is the Navy feels like they should do. Marines have kind of a similar thing. I believe the Marines will do a kind of a deal with like MARSOC, or MARSOC is like the Marine Corps version of the Navy SEALs, and then there's Recon, which is like Marine Corps version of like Army Rangers. So they'll have contracts like that, but it's the same kind of a deal. Like if you fail out, which most of them do, then you get stuck with some really crappy job. Like you might be an ammo counter. That's actually a job, and not really anyone volunteers that signs up for it on their own. So lots of folks that fail out of their preferred jobs tend to get thrown into jobs like that. At least that's how it was when I was in from 2011 to 2015. So, reading with the recruiter, they're telling me all this great stuff. I was like, wow, I can play my saxophone and shoot the bad guys? This sounds pretty great. And so, that's something I was getting told. I was going to all these weekly things. Now, these weekly workouts were kind of fun. The very first little workout deal that happened to be a pull function was a CFT, and I threw up all over the place. The CFT is a combat fitness test. It's changed slightly numbers, like score-wise for Marines, but it's basically the same deal. You do a half-mile sprint. If you're in the fleet or in boot camp, it's with boots and utes. So you're wearing your combat boots and then your pants. Then you've got to do... at the time, it was like 100 ammo can lifts within 2 minutes for a perfect score. Then you have like a maybe 300 yard-ish series of obstacles where it's like carrying people, running with ammo cans. You throw a grenade, do some push-ups, stuff like that. And then that's the whole test. It's supposed to be designed to mimic what you would maybe have to do in a combat environment. So that's the other thing they'll have you do with recruit delayed entry program kinds of stuff with the Marines, is they want you being kind of used to some of these things. You might do like a PFT, although it'll probably be the IST because it's just half the full PFT. You'll probably do a combat fitness course at some point. They'll probably teach you things like basic history and knowledge, maybe like a fire team structure, stuff like that. They might even tell you what the purpose of a Marine Corps Rifle Squad is, and I think I still remember it. Purpose of the Marine Corps Rifle Squad is to locate, close up, and destroy the enemy by fire and maneuver, and to repel the enemy's assault by fire and close combat. I'm like 99% sure that that's still right. So that's the kind of stuff they'll drill into you to try to help you out at boot camp, which once I got there, I thought that's kind of weird. Because when you're actually at boot camp, which we might talk about that, you have to recite the knowledge and stuff over. If you're standing in the line, someone's calling out knowledge, like stating a fact that you have to know for like a test, and then everyone else repeats it back. And there's like no way. Like I think you'd have to be not paying attention or just struggle with academic stuff to not be able to pass the test things. But the recruiters try to help by giving you some of that knowledge ahead of time, so that way it's just a little bit less stressful. Other stuff I had to experience was things like these weekly workouts would be rather intense. Like we occasionally did football. That was always fun. But other times you do things like group runs where we'd have like 6 people, but there's 5 weights, and so everyone except for one person has to carry like an ammo can or like a 10-pound plate, something like that. You just kind of rotate it through the line, and every now and then you get a little break, and then eventually you have to pick it up. And on one of these runs, I remember there was this poor gal. I forget her name. She could not make it, and so I ended up having to carry her. I put her on my back, and when we finished the whole thing, if I remember right, this gal actually ended up dropping out of boot camp in like the first week or so when she got there. But that's just kind of one of the things that we had to do. So like the recruiting entry level stuff, there's a lot of especially for Marines, the Marines trying to sell you on the Marines, because other branches got stuff like enlistment bonuses, job incentives. So like if you do this job, you might get a bonus of like $80,000. Or if you do this job, you might get no bonus. Or if you do this job, you might get one for $20,000. That kind of thing. Whereas the Marines are like, oh man, you get to be a Marine. That's like their whole spiel. And they're good. They're good at that spiel. Like I went for it. I could have done the band and probably any other branch. Well, I definitely could have done the band in any other branch. But for some reason, I got sold on the whole having the title of the Marines, the few, the proud, all that stuff. So that's just something else to kind of be aware of if you are considering the Marine Corps, is you'll probably have some Marine recruiter guy trying to sell you on the fact that, hey, you get to be a Marine, and that is way more than any $80,000 enlistment bonus you could ever get. And let me tell you, I don't think it is. I might get some flack from fellow jarheads, but sometimes I think I wish I would have taken that 80 grand and gone somewhere else. So that's just a little bit about the entry level like recruiting process. Um, there's lots of like charged language I could use. Were the Marines ultimately horrible for me? I think it's too early to say. Like I'm only 28. Um, so far, there hasn't been tons of positives, but there's certainly been things that I already had gravitated towards that were reinforced that are probably good things in life, such as being on time, trying to be organized, being able to handle stressful and chaotic work environments. Part of the reason this whole thing kicked off between a very dear loved one of mine and myself was because they felt I should have reacted much more drastically to a situation than I actually reacted, or I felt like I should react. And so that was a downside of being, kind of used to chaotic environments and handling all that. So the Marines can definitely teach you some good stuff, but there can also be some downsides, like if I hadn't joined the Marines, I probably wouldn't be labeled 70% and being evaluated for 100% disabled, or being looking down the barrel of having surgery on my foot because, according to some MRI, most of the ligaments in one of my feet are either torn or stretched. So like there's ups and downs for everything. If you guys want to know more specific stuff about what it was like being recruited in, let me know. Sometimes I think it's pretty common for folks, but sometimes it's hard to just kind of think of stuff off the bat, as well as if you're writing down. Like I kind of took some notes and was thinking about the stuff I wanted to mention, and I was having a little bit of a hard time. But I bet you if someone had an exact like, hey, what can you tell me about this? I can probably answer. So I just kind of want to end this video with just trying to sum up my recruiting experience, which was I was really, really sold on the whole what it's like to be a Marine. Like that was number one thing they went for, because they knew I could have gone to any other branch. Like I was called like their golden boy. I was one of the few they had that was doing well in school, that had college scholarships offers. I was, more like I had stayed out of trouble with the law. I just got a speeding ticket at the end of my senior year. Like that was it. And like so, like they had called me for a little while, like their golden boy. So I had a very interesting experience, doing those weekly workouts. I enjoyed that. I think a part of why I did the whole Marine thing, because this is a testament to the skills of these recruiters, is they're good at building a community. Like a lot of folks from the military, and I'm more familiar with Marines when they get out, so it might not just be more of a Marine thing. It could be everyone, but I know tons of Marines when they get out, they're like, man, I miss the camaraderie. And I think all of that camaraderie and getting used to having people around that are like-minded starts with recruit training, or not recruit training, the recruiter, because you're doing these events where everyone at least is interested in joining the Marines. You get rewarded for bringing names to the recruiter, which makes sense. Like if you do some of the work for the recruiter, when they get to go home to their wives, family, their house, whatever it is that they have, like that's a pretty good deal. And so like they incentivize you when you're going through the program to give them names, and if someone happens to join up, then like you get like a promotion, or you could get a promotion. I don't know, it is a little bit confusing, but with stuff like that. So there's a lot of selling the Marine name, a lot of the whole like doing this as a team, because things that are hard are usually easier to do when you're doing it as a group. Part of what sucks a lot with what I'm going through right now is I feel like I'm more or less by myself. So having like all those people around you going through the same suck is pretty nice. It's a good thing to have, and that's something unique. I think the Marines, especially on the recruiting level, do differently. Because I did consider Army for officer stuff back in like 2019, and it was just weird. I was like, I feel like I'm like an outsider. No one seeming to like gel. The workouts are weak. And so the Marines do a lot with the recruiting of trying to sell you, because you are here, you must be better or tougher or wanting to work harder or all of the above than everyone else. Excuse me. So they really sell you on your own ego, boosting you up, making you feel kind of like a badass. Which, as an adult, when I've been working in schools, I've seen a kid or two that's planning on joining the Marines, and they definitely tend to have that vibe with them. Like, one kid, he didn't necessarily have the whole, like, I'm better than everyone else thing, but, he was walking around the school wearing a Marine Corps hat, combat boots, belt, like the typical boot stuff. Like, if you're a jarhead, like, listening to this or watching this, if you think of a typical boot, that was this kid as a senior in high school. And Marines are able to rig how they make their potential recruits feel in such a way where some of those recruits will do recruiting for them and get their names around. And so if you're considering, just kind of keep that in mind. Like, I might have been someone that would have been interested in wearing like Marine Corps shirts or a hat around school or something. I didn't really get those, so I didn't do it. But now as like an adult and someone that's been through it, I'm like, sucker, boot. My wife called him boot. That was kind of like their joke. He didn't actually understand what boot meant for a while, but once he did, he thought it was pretty funny. Um, so yeah, that's some of the stuff with the entry level things. Be prepared for lots of paperwork. You're gonna have to get medically cleared. There's gonna probably be some kind of like a background check. They might need you to give them like as many as like 10 years of your history, which for most 18-year-olds isn't a ton of stuff that you can actually fill in because you probably were in that same area for quite a while. So things like that, and they really just want you to be excited to go, to be excited to tell your friends and things like that. And of course, there's going to be functions and things that are all supposed to be geared towards getting you ready to go. So if you got any specific questions you would like to know about anything, I'll do my best to answer. I was a Marine from 2011, 2015, 2019. I started to try to go back in as an officer. I got selected in the summer of 2020. January 2021, I actually went to OCS. I got halfway through, but I hurt myself on day one. I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And I went to get my foot taped, and they got me MRI, and like, yep, you're done, and you can't come back because of how messed up my foot was. So I at the very least can speak to both of the recruiting and then to some degree boot camp experiences for both Marine officers and enlisted. So feel free to hit me up with these questions. Jonathan was in the Navy. I'll probably ask him if he could do by himself, just like what it was like to be recruited in the Navy for next week or before too long. So hopefully you guys can get a kick out of that. So if you want something him to answer specifically, make sure you comment down below about your Navy questions or email us because the email is in the description box or on Twitter. You could on Twitter and we'll do. I monitor that and I'll do my absolute best to pass those questions on to Jonathan. So thank you guys all for watching. I appreciate it. If you got any fellow jarheads that are listening, make sure you guys comment what your experience with joining was like below. Everyone joins for different reasons. I wanted to prove to my ex-girlfriend that I was tougher than she thought I was. I think I end up over the years proving that I think I might be tougher than I think I am. But we'll find out. This is the hardest thing I've done in my life, what I'm going through right now. So we're gonna have to find out. But anyways. So just let me know down below what you guys think, fellow jarheads, devil dogs, of your experience with being in the delayed entry program as a poolee, and that'd be kind of cool to be able to share that stuff around with each other. Thank you guys all for watching. I am Andrew. Don't forget to like, subscribe, download, all of that good stuff. Appreciate you all so much for watching. Thanks for bearing with us as we took a weekend break. Jonathan had to get his car fixed today, and just the timing of it didn't work out. Because I'm going to be traveling across the country, or about halfway across the country, to finish up some moving stuff here over the weekend. And so I just figured it'd be better for me just to do this one by myself, because of logistics and planning it all out. So thank you all so much for watching. Make sure you are all a part of the counteraction for veteran issues, and we will catch you guys in the next episode.